Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live webinar on our home childcare provider pilot and home support worker pilot program. Today is August 21st, 2020. My name is Israel, and again, I am welcoming you, everyone, to our live webinar. You can watch us live in our via Zoom, or you can also watch us live via our Facebook Live on our Facebook page, business page. Please do like us. If you're watching in our Facebook page, please do like us and share us to your friends and families. To those friends of yours or families of yours that would be benefiting from a webinar around home child care provider and the home support worker program for Canada. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to add your questions on. If you're in Zoom, we have our chat box open. If you are watching in our Facebook Live, you can have your questions on the comment section, and I will go ahead and take a look at those questions and answer them from time to time. We want this webinar to be as interactive as it can be. So please do not hesitate to ask any questions. For your questions might be also questions of our other attendees as well. Okay. So again, my name is Israel Roman. I am a licensed Canadian immigration consultant and at the same time a registered nurse here in Canada. And I am still practicing nursing here in Canada as we speak. Our offices, we have our main office is here in Canada. That would be in Nanaimo, BC. And our Philippine location would be President JP Laurel Highway, Lipa City, Batangas. So, sorry. So if you guys are close to Lipa City and you want to visit our office, please do so. We are happy to welcome you in our office. So home childcare provider and home support worker. So this is relatively a new program wherein it started just last year. So what's the difference between prior to June 2019 and the current program right now, right? So the biggest change and the biggest advantage for all of you guys or all of the caregivers is that this application or this work permit is now an open work permit. So when you apply as a caregiver to come to Canada, you are now applying for an open work permit. Okay, and this open work permit is only occupation restricted and not employer restricted. What that one provides you or gives you is that in case you need to change employer, you don't need to apply for another work permit and wait until that work permit is released before you can start working again for that new employer. With this one, you don't need to apply for a new work permit. You change employer and you can start on the day of you change employer. So that is good for all of the caregivers because now there's no more, you don't have to wait. So you won't be wasting your time. So yeah, the employer now doesn't need to have a labor market impact assessment or LMIA. So this is great because this is one step less for the employers to hire caregivers. And So this would motivate them to now hire foreign workers like you as their caregivers. So this is great news for both the caregivers and the employer as well. And when you apply for to come here as a caregiver, you're not just applying for an open work permit, you are also applying for a permanent residence status. Okay, so you are submitting two applications at the same time: open work permit and permanent residency. So essentially, when you get approved, essentially you are a permanent resident of Canada. The only thing that you need to comply with is to work for at least 2 years, okay? And as a caregiver. And once you have worked for 2 years as a caregiver, we submit your documents to the immigration, and then they would finalize your permanent residency status. So this is the biggest change, two of the biggest change in the new caregiver program. So now when you as a caregiver, when you come here, you are now applying for an open work permit, occupation restricted, not employer, so you can change from one employer to another if you have to without reapplying for a work permit. And you are also applying for your permanent residency status as well. So with this one, you are able to take or you will be taking your spouse and dependent as because you are now applying for permanent residency status. So you are taking your spouse and dependent with you when you first fly to Canada. So that's another advantage of this new program. So for your so let's talk about eligibility. What are the requirements for you as a caregiver to come to Canada in this new caregiver program? So one is you need to have a genuine or valid job offer. Of course, the immigration would need to check, do you really have children to watch for or to look for or to care for? Or do you have you are applying for a caregiver, do you have an elderly that you'll be taking care of, right? So you need to have a genuine job offer. So the employer, your employer, will need to provide you a job offer that states that you will be working at least 30 hours per week. And that employer also needs to prove that that employer has children or has a elderly parent for you to take care of. And the other one would be is the other one for to prove that you're a genuine employer is that immigration would also check the financial situation, making sure that your employer is able to pay your salary. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to add it in the chat box or in our Facebook live comment section. First question is, will you decide also about elder caregiver today? So this is both for childcare and home support, which is home support is for the elder caregiver. So so child care provider is also known as, or this is what everyone knows as, a nanny. Home support worker would be the caregiver, which is caregiver for that one would mean it would be for elderly clients. The next eligibility factor would be, are you able to do the job? All right. So the immigration would have to look at that one. you're applying for a nanny or you're applying to be a caregiver. Are you able to do the job? Do you have the qualifications to do the job? So the immigration officer will have to look at your course. Do you have a caregiver course? Do you have a training, or do you have something equivalent to caregiver course? So, and it has to be recent. So when we say recent, it has to be in the last 5 years. So you might have your caregiver course 10 years ago, but you are still working as a caregiver. So then that is fine. That is good. You are still able to do the job, or you meet that requirement. Or something equivalent would be you are working as a nurse right now, right? So that is something equivalent. Or if you have a nursing course and you finished 2 years ago, but now you are not in a medical field for your employment, that is fine still. You have the education or something equivalent to a caregiver course, which is nursing. Now, in the previous slide, I did say that when you submit your application, you'll be submitting an open work permit, and at the same time, your a permanent residency application. So with that one, with the PR or permanent residency, you need to meet the language level. That's the requirement for the permanent residency. And with this one, it would only be CLB 5, right? So CLB 5, I think this is doable, very doable. But in case you have taken IELTS before or English exam before, and for some reason, when you get into the exam room, you have that anxiety, and because of that, you're not able to get the score that you need, right? It doesn't mean that you don't know English, but it's just the anxiety, right? So, or the fear for that exam. So don't you worry. We'll show you later on. We'll tell you later on how we can help you with this. Next, meet the education requirement. This is also for your permanent residency application. So with regards to education requirement, you need to have at least 1 year post-secondary or 1 year in college, right? So I'll give you an example that doesn't meet this education requirement, which is common. So if you're from the Philippines, you got your education from the Philippines, and that was some time ago. So and you had your 2 years associate degree, and then you took your caregiver course recently. So you are able to do the job because you have a caregiver course which you have just taken recently. But when it comes to the education requirement, since you only had grade 10 or you finished high school, but you were not part of that K1 to 12 program. So and then you have a 2 year associate degree. What would happen is that sorry, what would happen is that your first year college would be converted to grade 11 or will be equivalent to grade 11. Your second year college is equivalent to grade 12, meaning to say are still missing 1 year post-secondary course or 1 year college. That's why it is safer if you have a degree, you have a 4 year degree, or we can try that if you have a 3 year college. If you spend 3 years in college, then yes, there's a possibility that you meet the education requirement as well. Hello, Chris, Marie. So I'm not sure if you are still not able to hear us or anything, but this is a webinar with sounds though. So I'm hoping that everyone in the Zoom is able to hear me. As an applicant, will I have the freedom to choose who I want to take care for? I prefer gerontology. Definitely, yes. So we won't be giving you employer and forcing you to grab that employer, all right? You would have the option to say no or yes to that offer, or even say yes or no to that interview. If you know that before the interview, the employer is not what it's not the type of employer you are comfortable looking after, then yes, you can just simply decline that interview, right? So that you don't waste your time and you don't waste the employer's time as well, right? So yeah, and I guess is taking IELTS would be required. Yes, because IELTS is now required for your permanent residency application. And because when you apply as a caregiver, when you apply to come here, you would be applying for both open work permit and permanent residency. So for the permanent residency, then you would need the English exam. Is there a minimum number of months or years of caregiver course or training? The experience would be at least a year for the caregiver course. As long as it is TESDA approved, then that should be okay. Okay, moving on. The other criteria would be admissible to Canada, meaning to say you don't have any criminal offense, you don't have any record of misrepresentation, or you're generally healthy. But it doesn't mean though that it's a end of the road for you. It's just that there'll be other it will be a complicated application, but still possible. So yeah, so I'm not saying no to those applicants with criminal offense or misrepresentation. It would just be a complicated, complex application. So yeah. So the question with regards to if you sign under our agency, will you be providing us with employer? That one will be tackled later on, and there is no age limit. As long as eligibility, as long as you're able to do the job, you are qualified. It doesn't. There's no. There's no criteria here with that says you need to be between the ages of 18 to 35. There's nothing like that here. Okay, I did mention that the application would be open work permit and permanent residency. So because it's a permanent residency application, you'll be bringing your spouse with you as well. Your spouse is part of that application, initial application. Okay, so comes when your spouse gets the visa or the permit, your spouse will have an open work permit as well. But the difference is that his or her open work permit is not occupation restricted and is not employer restricted. So he or she can work anywhere for any employer and change employer anytime as well. And yeah, so that's good for you and your spouse as well. As I've said, work in any employer or any occupation as long as he or she is qualified for that one. Dependent child will be, so if you have children, if you have a child, they are also included in the application. So when they come here, they will have a study permit, and they they will have the opportunity to go to school and avail that free education up to grade 12. I'm just reading the questions from our Zoom. I am a nurse with more than 10 years of experience, but have 3 years gap on bedside. Do I have to take the recent experience, or do I have to take a caregiver course? I would suggest, if later on I'll tell you guys how to, what is the next step. I would suggest that you sorry, I would suggest that you take the next step, Belen, and then from there you'll know what our assessment is. Hi, what if I only have the caregiver course from TESDA, but no experience? Is there any possibility that would be a yes? Depends on when you have taken your caregiver course. Family of four here, but is it okay to go first, then family to follow? That is totally fine as well, but when you apply for your application for your open work permit and permanent residency, everyone in your family, your spouse and your children would have to be included and assessed in that application, because everyone needs to be admissible to come to Canada, right? So if your spouse has is not allowed to come to Canada, then the entire family is not allowed to. Suppose my spouse chooses not to go with me, will I still be able to pursue my application? Yes, that is correct. You sorry. Yes, you are still able to pursue your application, but again, your spouse needs to be included in that application. Okay? I have a caregiver course and currently working as a nursing assistant in a private hospital. Would I be qualified? Yes, that meets the criteria able to do the job. So the biggest question is the employer. Okay, so I just want to clear things up, or just want to make sure that we're clear on this one. Roman and Associates Immigration Services Limited, even though we have office in the Philippines, we are not registered or licensed with POEA, because we are not a recruitment agency. If we are a recruitment agency, then yes, we should be licensed with POEA. We cannot conduct our business without a license from POEA. But because we are not a recruitment agency, we are a Canadian immigration consultancy firm. We don't have to be licensed with POEA. Okay, we have our business permit in the Philippines and all of those things to conduct business, but since again we're not a recruitment agency, we are not obliged to be registered with POEA. So with regards to the employer, which is the very popular question, is that this is the responsibility of the applicant. Okay, but having said that, we are here to help you find your employer, and I'll show you how we can find you an employer. So an employer could be your relative, okay? A relative that needs nanny or that needs a caregiver, okay? And they need to be able to prove that they are a genuine employer. So your relative needs to have, again, either a nanny, I mean, needs to have either children, or there's elderly individual that needs to be taken care of. Okay. And at the same time, their financial situation as well will be looked at. But it is possible, and it doesn't mean that because they are your relative, it's a no. There's no policy or guideline within the immigration law that states that if your employer is your relative, it's a no, right? So relative is a possibility. What if we don't have a relative? Then I'll show you how. Okay, we'll show you how we are able to help you get a get an employer. So what is the advantages in joining with us then? Okay, knowing that now the employer is the responsibility of the applicant. So what's the advantage of joining with us with our team? So normally, if you search this website, if you search the web for any Canadian immigration consultant, there is a professional fee or consultant's fee or retainer's fee. With this one, we to as part of this webinar, we are offering 50% off the retainer fee, which the retainer fee or the consultant's fee can also be negotiated to the employer so that it's the employer who shoulders this one. Now, this would be an added benefit to you because now when we negotiate to you with your employer with regards to they'll be the one paying the retainer's fee, they're not paying the full amount as well. They'll be paying 50% only, which is a good news for them, right? So there you go. The other one is normally if you are taking your spouse or children, there's additional retainer fee or additional professional fee for those applicants, your spouse and dependent child, because that's additional application or additional work or service. But since because of this, if because you're part of this webinar and you are joining our pool of candidates, there's no additional fee for your spouse or dependent. Another advantage would be you have free unlimited IELTS review. So remember on the first few slides wherein I did say that one of the eligibility requirement is IELTS or CLB English, which you need to have CLB 5. And if you have any challenges in getting the score, we are here to help you. So this is one way of helping you achieve the score that you need or even higher. You'll have free unlimited IELTS review. So when you take your IELTS review, this would help you boost your confidence in taking the IELTS exam, which you'll not just be getting the minimum score required, you'll be getting more, which will be helpful later on if you change your mind and would like to pursue other things that needs IELTS. You have this you might have the score that you need, right? Because it's not only a minimum 5 that you achieved, but higher than that one. We will also take care of your IELTS exam. And the biggest advantage is that we will represent you to our Canadian employers. Okay. So, and that is the advantage of us being here in Canada, having our office here in Canada and working with you guys, caregivers outside of Canada. We are close to the employers looking for caregivers or nannies like you. We are able to So when we post your profile in our Canadian website, which caters to Canadian employers, they are able to see your profile and they'll be able to say to us, hey, I saw this profile. I want to interview her. I want to interview her and have a chance to and hopefully hire her, right? So we would also be posting your profiles in our social media, which we regularly share to our Canadian employers, right? And networking. When I say networking, remember on the first slide, I did say that I am a registered nurse here in Canada. So does what it does is that I'm able to see, or I'm close to the patients. I'm close to the families of the patients that would be needing caregivers or that would be needing nannies later on when they get discharged from the hospital. Okay, so if they have dementia, they were admitted in the hospital and now they're not able to go home by themselves. They can go home, but they need to have someone to watch over them, to be with them, and their children is not able to because they have their own lives as well. Then that patient would be needing a caregiver. So, and because of me working here as a nurse, I have networking ability with regards to when it comes to that one, right? So that's where our employers come from. That's one of the avenue. It's not the only avenue, but that's one way. Okay, so you might think I'll give you some tips as well. I'm sorry to miss hearing about the entertainer's fee. Will it be us paying or the employer? So for the retainer's fee, this can be negotiated so that it's the employer who pays for it. And yes, we have employers who have shouldered all of the expense of the caregiver, right? And so it's a possibility. So if you are anyone that is giving you advice when it comes to immigration, Canadian immigration, they need to be licensed and licensed under the ICCRC or the Immigration Consultant of Canada Regulatory Council. So you can go to the site. So again, anyone that's giving you advice with regards to immigration, they need to be licensed, right? They cannot just be giving advice, not unless they're your relative. But if it's not your relative and they're giving advice, even if it's a free advice, they need to be licensed with immigration, with ICCRC. And if you have any complaint, then you can log it in with ICCRC. If they're not licensed with ICCRC, then they're not able to help you with that one, with your claim. So you can go to ICCRC and I'll show you. And if you just click on, so this is the ICCR website. This is our governing body. You go to the public register and then down here, scroll down and type in the person that's giving you advice. See if that person is licensed with ICCRC. So type in the name, Roman, last name, first name Israel. Hit search and you'll see Roman Israel status is active and contact, and that's the contact information. And this is the consultant's identification number. Okay, so when you hit contact, it would show you where the consultant is from or based, which is for Israel Roman. He is based in Nanaimo, BC, Canada, and works for a company Roman and Associates Immigration Services Limited. Okay, so now you know how to search if that person you're dealing with is licensed with ICCRC or if that person is legally okay to be providing you advice. Now, that person, so it did say that Israel Roman works for Roman and Associates Immigration. So how can you check if that company really exists? And because this company is in Canada, you can go to Canada Business Registry and accept the terms of use, and then location. It was mentioned British Columbia, and then type in the name of the company and hit search or hit enter, and there you go. Roman and Associates Immigration Services Limited, and the status is active, and business type is BC company. Okay, so now you're able to, these are the two ways that you can make sure that you're working with a person that is a legally able to provide the services that they're saying they will provide you. Okay, so finding an employer. So I did say that I'm here in Canada. So you can also search. Okay, I'm just looking for my mouse. There you go. So you can also search, let's say, for see if I'm really in Canada, or what does it say, what does Google say when it comes to Israel Roman. Okay. So when you type in Israel Roman on the Google search, this is what it shows. So on the right side, it shows Roman and Associates, and it confirms the address. It is Dumont, and it's in Nanaimo, and that is verified by Google. So that's good. Now on the left-hand side, let's go find some articles, or yeah, that says Israel Roman. Is there anything that says Israel Roman is a scam, or right? So there's none of that. So that's good. And here you'll see Nanaimo Bulletin. So that's a newspaper here in Nanaimo, and it says Israel Roman, NRGH, intensive care, telemetry, medicine. There you go. So that one says that it does show that I'm here in Nanaimo. Let's go check the picture. So here in the picture, or maybe I'll show you my camera to compare. Oops, I have background. Hold on. Okay. I don't know how to remove my background. Okay. We are live, so anything goes, right? So there you go. Okay. I think I've got it. There you go. So now you guys can see me. Let's fix that one. There you go. All right. So that's this one right here. The article says, what does the article says? Okay. So that is from Nanaimo Hospital Auxiliary Donation, tops 300,000, Nanaimo News. And that's that person right there is similar to this person in the cam. So that's good. Another picture, let's see. Okay, hospital gets 340,000 now, and this is a BC local news, so British Columbia. And you'll see me right there holding that big check. So there you go. Let's click on another picture. All right, so that's me again. So energy, no, not in MLA, Parksville, Qualicum, Michelle Stillwell. So one of the politicians visits the ICU in NRGH. So that's me showing her the ICU. Okay. Okay. Next is finding an employer. So We have another company. Our sister company is which is called Home is Best Caregiver Services Limited. So this company right here is our recruitment agency, okay, which is based here in Canada. It is not based in the Philippines, so this is not licensed with POEA. This is licensed here in British Columbia. We have our license to recruit foreign workers. We have our business permit on this one. So Home is Best Caregiver Services. This is a recruitment agency wherein Canadian employers come to this company, come to our office, to our company and ask for caregivers or nannies. They come to our door and say, "Hey, I have a elderly parent that has dementia. I need a caregiver. I need two caregivers around the clock, or I need one caregiver and it would be during the day, Monday to Friday." And so yeah, so we have this is our recruitment agency here, and this is not only for British Columbia. This is for Canada, except Quebec. Right? We don't provide services for employers in Quebec and for any clients, caregivers, nannies wanting to go to Quebec. We don't service Quebec. We're not licensed to service Quebec. Okay, so that's Home is Best. The other one, the other company that helps our caregivers get their employer is Nannies on the Block. So this is another avenue for our caregivers or nannies to connect with our Canadian employers. Okay. So hopefully with those, you would you'll be comfortable by knowing that we are able to help you find an employer, right? So and that's our advantage of like a advantage to other agency out there we're in. We are primarily located here in Canada, and we have businesses that caters to Canadian employers who are looking for caregivers or nannies like you. So, how much is the wage for caregivers or nannies? Is it worth coming here? What is it worth my investment, my time, right? So, as a caregiver or the home support worker, the median wage right now, Canadian median wage right now is $16.50, while a nanny is $14.11. That is the median Canadian wage. But there are some provinces that would offer for a caregiver as high as 24.50 and for a nanny as high as $20. So yeah, so there you go. So that is the wage. So you might think it might sound like that is not high, that's not worth it, or how much is 1411 really in a year, right? So here's a sample computation. So let's say you are you'll be working $14.11 for 40 hours a week, then you'll have $564 in a week. If you can, and if you're for 1 month, that would give you 2,256, and in a year, that would give you $27,072. Now, it might sound like okay, 27,000 is again too small, all right? But if we convert this one to Philippine peso, so 35 pesos for $1, that would give you almost a million pesos for working as a nanny here in Canada. And that's only your median wage. Okay. Median wage right now in BC is $15. So you might have an offer of $15 per hour. So that would be your family income, your annual income would be higher than 27,000, which in turn would be higher than 947,000. Okay? And that's only for you, all right? What if you are coming here with your spouse? And again, your spouse can work in any occupation, in any employer, all right? So let's say he is also would be earning close to $14. Then you just multiply that one to two. So now, as a family income, you are now earning close to 2 million pesos as your family income. Now, you have children. Your children is now in school, and they availed the free education provided by Canada. And with that one, you can also look at that one as your family income, right? Because if your children are in the Philippines right now or in your home country, you might be paying tuition fee for them for going to school. So that tuition fee, you can, now that you're not paying any tuition fee, you can look at that one as also your part of your family income. So yeah, so not bad, right? Okay. There's some questions in the question and answer. I will go ahead and answer them later on because some of them might be tackled along the way, so that we don't, so that I don't waste your time, right? So yeah. So yes, I'll be earning almost 1 million pesos, but I'm pretty sure there's investment that I need to give, right? So that is right. There is an investment on this or money involved, expenses, but I see this one as an investment on yourself, right? Wherein the return of investment lies on you. You have control over the return of investment. If you work, then you'll get the income that you need to have your investment returned to you. So I think this is way better than, let's say, in a business wherein you buy products and then you sell them online, or you sell them to your families, to your friends, or to whoever that would be needing that product, right? But again, it depends if who wants your product, who needs your product, and would that be a long-term business wherein that person will be buying your product every month kind of thing. So that business right there, you don't have control over the return of investment because you're relying on your customers, you're relying on other people to buy your product. I'm not saying, and no offense to those businesses, those online businesses that sells products, but I'm just saying, it's just a, I'm just comparing it, right? It's a decent business, no offense on that one, and don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying this one right here, you are investing on yourself. You are not selling any product. If you are a hardworking caregiver or nanny, then it will pay off, right? So, and I can attest to that one because there's a lot of caregivers here who are who have succeeded, right? They have their own, their families already here, right? Their children are in college, and yeah, they have a lovely house. Have multiple cars. So yeah, so it's it's a I think it's they're doing great here as a caregiver. So when it comes to the expenses or the investment, so the administration fee for this one, when you start your application, would be 48,000 pesos, which again, as part of our service for part of this webinar, for joining us, because of you joining our webinar, or our Facebook Live, you have your free unlimited IELTS review. We'll take care of your IELTS exam, and the consultant's fee would be 50% off. And again, that is we will negotiate down so that it's your employer that would be shouldering it, right? And then you have your ECA, and then the actual application. So this is the fee that you pay the government. So your open work permit application, that is 255. For your permanent residency application, that is 550. Again, those are two different applications, but it has to be submitted at the same time. You cannot say, can I just come to Canada under the work permit and not apply for permanent residency? Unfortunately, you cannot do that one anymore in this program. You have to apply for both. Medical exam, usually I think that is 10,000. It might be higher now. I'm not quite sure how much the medical exam is in the Philippines. Biometrics, if you haven't done biometrics in the last 10 years, that is $85. And then on your last stage, when you have completed your 2 years of employment, we will then be submitting for your right for your permanent residence. So that is $490. And by that time, 2 years, 490 is nothing, because every year you're earning 27,000 for 2 years. You have earned close to $60,000. So in 2 years, you've earned close to $60,000 or close to 2 million pesos. And that's only for you, right? And this fee right here, the open work permit, permanent residency application, medical exam, and biometrics, this is only for you as the principal applicant. If you have your spouse coming with you, then your spouse will have to also pay for the processing fee for their permanent residency. So that's 550. And then the right for permanent residence, again, that is later on, 2 years down the road. And then for your dependent child, 150. And then for the biometrics of your spouse, it's $85. And again, right below, retainer fee. So it's slashed 50% off. So now it's a total of only 25. And again, that can be negotiated with your employer. So I've said a lot of things. Really, I'm now confused. What are the first step? What is the initial step that I'll be taking? First is the eligibility check. So we will need to see if you meet the minimum requirement before we proceed, before we move further. At this stage, there is no fee. We're not asking you for any money on this one. We will be only checking your credentials and see if you meet the minimum requirements. Okay. Once we assess and evaluate and determine that you have met the minimum requirement, then you move to the next step, which is the start of your application. This is where we now bring you in as part of our pool of candidates, right? So this is the only time you pay the administration fee of 48,000, and then we facilitate your unlimited IELTS review, and then we do your profile and all of those things, right? We start representing you to our Canadian employers. Then evaluation credential assessment while waiting for your employer, and then we prepare for your documents that will be submitted to IRCC, or the Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada, or that's the immigration. Okay, so the documents would be not just for you, but also for your spouse and your children. And then we submit everything at once with the IRCC. And then everyone flies to Canada. I know there was a question earlier, can I leave my spouse? Yes, But again, you'll need to make sure that he or she is included in your application. Okay? So what's the immediate next step? Okay, so only if you're interested to avail our promo, if you're interested in our free unlimited IELTS review, in us providing you your IELTS exam, and then 50% on the retainer's fee, which is great for your employer, right? You will need to send your resume to assessment at romancanadianimmigration.ca, right? And it has to be a detailed resume so that we can really determine if you're eligible or not. This is the first step. This is the eligibility check. And again, you're not going to pay anything on this one, right? But later on you will be if we find you eligible, right? So with the subject line so that it doesn't get lost in our hundreds of emails so that we can triage it, please on the subject line write or type in Caregiver Pathway live stream August 21, 2020, so that we know that you are part of this webinar and that we are able to kind of like triage it. All right. So we don't want your email to get lost. We want to assess your resume as quickly as we can, and so that you can go ahead and go to the next step and start finding that employer. And again, if you're eligible, then we proceed to the next step, okay, which is the registration. All right, so that's all I have for now. So I'm hoping that you guys have learned a lot in this webinar. And I know there's a lot of thinking that you'll need to do. And yes, but thank you everyone. And I would like to take this opportunity as well to plug for tomorrow at 8 p.m. Or no, there's also a webinar for tonight at 8 p.m. Is it 8 p.m.? No, sorry. I'm getting confused because of the time difference between here, because I'm here in BC. It is morning right now, and you guys are in the Philippines, so we have a different time zone. So tomorrow, your time, Saturday, 11 a.m., we have another free webinar. That one will be around study, work, and immigrate to Canada. And then tomorrow at 8 p.m. as well would be a free webinar on nurses, how to come to Canada and work as a nurse and immigrate as a nurse. So if you have any friends and families, or for you, if you want to hear that webinar as well, please do go to our